Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and to this time-lapse version of a black cat in soft pastel. I hope that you enjoy this speedy version here. There will be a full real-time tutorial series on this over on my Patreon. I'll add the links to that in the description below. But as always, if you enjoy this here, then please do hit subscribe and check out all of my other playlists here on YouTube. This piece is 12 inches tall and I'm using pastel matte paper. It's the brown colour of pastel matte. And I've had so many requests for a black cat tutorial. This is one I have been meaning to do for a long time. And I suppose what held me back was not really having I don't have a black cat, but I also, out of all the cats that I do have access to, I didn't have any good photo references of a black cat. So I put the call out to my patrons, asking them if any of them have black cats and if they had any good photo references that I could work from and make into a demo. And wow, the response that I got was enormous. I got sent so many gorgeous black kitties, which actually made it very difficult for me to choose. So this is lovely little Una, and I'm going to be painting two black cats. I couldn't decide on just one. So I'm going to be painting two of my patrons' black cats, making those into demos, and then sending out the portraits to my patrons as a little thank you. Now, I think what most people find difficult about painting black fur is how do you make it not just look like a big black blob on the paper? And part of that comes from the quality of the photo reference, if I'm honest. This is a great photograph because we can see all of the shapes on Una's face. We can see plenty of detail on her body. So even though it's black fur, we do get a sense of some of the details and the structure of the animal's face, especially to be able to capture a likeness. It's important. So you need some type of good lighting in the photo reference to begin with. That's a good place to start with a decent photograph. And then after that, it's all about the colours that you add into the black fur. Now, I am using pure black. Normally, when I pick up a black pastel, it will be a harder black pastel stick. In this case, I am using the New Pastel, Prismacolor New Pastel. Now, these are not available anymore individually, so you may have to use a different brand of hard black pastel. There are many brands available. And I normally use a harder black stick simply because they tend to be a little bit darker than the soft pastel black. And also they create a little bit less dust, a little bit less mess when you're dealing with the pure black pigment. And then you can see here I am using a ton of other colours, dark purples, dark browns, sort of navy blue, all of those darker values layered over the top of the pure black to try and find a little bit of the cat's form and structure. And then in certain areas we do get some much brighter highlights where the black fur is really catching the strongest of the light coming from one side. So there really is a lot of colour to be found in a black subject. It's a bit like when I'm painting something white. They both tend to reflect a lot of the colours around them. So onto the lovely yellow-orange eyes. And now the main aim of this tutorial was to demonstrate how to create the black fur But I also did want to try and capture lovely Una's likeness, as this little portrait will be going out to my patron. And of course, when I'm working on pet portrait commissions, it's always my top priority to capture a very good likeness of the animal. And when it comes to cats, for some reason, I find that quite tricky. Perhaps it's the very differing shapes of eyes that you get from one cat to the next. A bit like when I'm painting humans, it feels like a little millimeter out here and there, and you just don't have the likeness of that particular cat. But with the face done to a certain level here, I decide to work on at the rest of her body and get the blanket that she's lying on blocked in. So her body is quite dark in the photo reference, and when I'm working on something that is quite dark, I tend to lighten the photo just so that I can see what's actually in those darkest shadow areas. I don't necessarily want to paint it a whole lot brighter than it is in the photo, but lightening the photo while I'm working on it helps me see some of those darkest creases, like where the legs join the body, some of those very darkest areas. And using the pure black as my base, then I can use a mixture of those darker values to try and find a bit of the texture of the fur. So dark brown, dark purple, dark navy, all of my darkest values, very useful when painting black fur. And then just to mention some of those brightest highlight areas, they're not necessarily with really, really bright values either. Some of those brighter highlights on the fur are more like mid-tone colours, dusky blue violets. There's a warm kind of fleshy tone, which is Unison BE21. That's one of the colours in my animal set from Unison. In fact, I tried to use a lot of the colours from my animal set. So if you've got that set, you will have most of the colours used in this piece, and you should be well set for painting black fur. And then of course I added some of the lovely teal blue colours for the blanket. I decided to change the colour of the blanket just a little bit in the painting, just to try and tie it in a little better with the colours running through her fur. So I did use the teal kind of colours, but then I also mixed in some of the dark navy and purple tones that I've used on her fur. That usually helps to create a little bit more colour harmony within the painting. So I'll always try to use some of the colours from the main subject within the background, or vice versa. You want to avoid having completely disjointed main subject and background with entirely different palettes of colour going on. If you can make a few common colours happen across the background and the main subject, it will just tie the whole thing together a lot better. So here we've got some of the dusky blue violet coming into the blanket as the highlight areas. So a lovely reference image to work from. Big thanks to my patron for sending me this. The full-length tutorial series will be on my Patreon channel if you would like to have a go at this. And also do check out my Patreon, as I will be working on another black cat right after this one. And we're going to compare the difference between really good photo reference and a slightly more difficult photo, so that's coming next. But I hope that you enjoyed this. Please remember to subscribe, and until next time, happy pasteling.